Journeys Ahead, Draft 2, Chapter 12, Titan Crashers. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. A Titan? What the hell did that bird brain mean by a Titan? Nock's words cried out across the forested lands of Lunar Souls, as him and all the others now traversed through a large thicket of trees. Good question. Can't deny, though. They dropped us off at quite the beautiful spot. Ka replied as he raised his blue hand up and brushed it across a set of large pine tree leaves. Yeah, drop us off with no portal in the middle of the woods with no clear direction on. Yeah, sure. Jada stuttered and groaned as her and Void walked side by side, now with Pofnu back to sitting in his pack. Just keep moving forwards, guys. We all left those portals facing this direction, so I'm assuming we keep moving this way. Void tried to reason with a hand outstretched, but couldn't deny that he was nervous about this whole thing. Alright, Blue. Any ideas on what they could have meant by a Titan? I feel like you're the only... Scratch that. You're the only one who probably knows what they're talking about. Jada nervously asked as she contemplated on reaching for the Spark's hand that was swaying forwards and backwards alongside hers. In the grand scale of everything, that could mean anything. A dragon, a giant bee. Void listed off. A mountain? Cod added as they all entered a clearing. A mountain? Void replied as he looked up to Cod, who was now staring at something in the distance. Taking note, everyone craned their heads to where the flip side was looking, and fell still and silent. The group of five had now entered a clearing, one that led its way to a massive roundabout of castle walls. These structures stretched out for a good while in a massive circle, one that surrounded a giant body of water. Yet, that wasn't the grand focal point of it all, for within this pool of liquid sat a being that had to be around 100 feet in height. The beast was quite literally a mountain come to life. It was a gigantic golem, Void realized. Its body was made from rough stone and jagged rocks, minerals and soil that had trees and other plant life sprouting off its rounded body. Its shape was humanoid, but it was hunched over akin to a frail old man. Its arms and legs were bulbous and fat in size, as well as its mossy torso and head, which had two large glowing eyeballs and a sharp stone-toothed mouth. Around what could only be referred to as Mother Nature's shell were flocks of birds and all kinds of insects, buzzing and soaring over the trees along the golem's back. For a good long second, the group all allowed for the majesty of the beast to wash over them. This was possibly a once-in-a-lifetime sight that should have been filled with grace. However, the being would have continued to be quite the beauty if it hadn't been for one thing. It was draining the water, everyone realized, leaving fish and other aquatic life to flop and pass on. The water wells, Void recalled, as the Goliath sounded the chuckle from its act of self-indulging pleasure. You gotta be kidding me. Nock gasped out with a step back, while Cot just took out his phone and snapped a picture. Nobody knew how to respond to their current predicament. Even Void was left a bit perplexed as to where they should start. Well, we're gonna have to fight that big thing, aren't we? Jada asked as she crossed her arms and looked towards Void's taken aback and slightly terrified face. Regrettably, yes, I think we may be about to do that. He replied with a small step forwards, whilst doing his best to not look down the mountain slope they stood upon. I mean, it's really big. Biggest thing I've ever seen. The guitars examined as she now stood alongside Void, while Nock and Cot just silently gazed at the monster from afar. I've seen bigger. Void stated with a shrug as Pawfu gazed upon the beast in awe over his shoulder. Wait, really? Jada responded with a perk in her eyes and turn in her head. Are you joking? It's massive! The spark bellowed as he reached a hand out and gripped Jada's shoulder while gesturing at the beast. They really want us to kill this thing? Seems like a little bit of a hassle. The flip side said aloud as he walked his lanky self up and took a seat upon what they now knew to be a cliff ledge. He appeared rather unfazed by the sheer size of the creature, Void thought. Then again, within the few days he's known Kot, he had quickly come to realize that he had a chill attitude, one that never seemed to fit with his current predicament. You're telling me I don't even know where to begin with this. I've never dealt with something as big as that. Hell, I've barely worked in a team. It doesn't help that you two can't do much. Void babbled with a gesture towards Nock and Kot, who glanced at him with shaken eyes. It also doesn't help how high up we are. Void went on with a dizzying turn, then hobbled back after seeing the sheer drop to the jagged rocks below. Ugh! The spark cried until finding his quivering breath. Blue, are you... Wait. Do you not like heights? Jada questioned with an awkward point in the Void's self-composed face. I don't want to talk about it. He replied with a followed-up deep breath and sigh, recalling upon a distant memory from years past. Okay, look. There's a lot of faults at play here. He's big, we're high up, there's a lot of water that could hurt you. Void listed with a point towards Jada, when Nock suddenly spoke aloud. Waterfall. He stated with a gestured point in his gun. There's a waterfall, we can knock him down. Following the mechanic's gaze, everyone took notice of a massive decline within the water, specifically near the backside of the monster. It was rather obvious as to what the formation was. They could see sharp rocks being splashed and crashed upon by the current's drive, which resulted in both a large, falling spectacle that was accompanied by a roar of Mother Nature's natural drink. What if we try and knock him over the ledge? Get him close enough to where we could, I guess, somehow? I don't know. Nock speculated with a falling gesture and whisper in his hand. You know. Are you suggesting we trip it? Kot asked as he gazed back at the beast. Actually, hold up on here just 1 second. On closer examination, that might actually be possible. Look at its limbs, gang. The flip side boasted while pointing at the monster's joints, which appeared to be made out of thick vines and wriggling plants. Think maybe we could take it out by his knees? I know you gotta have some type of weaponry that could do damage, Blue Boy. Kot asked with a gesture towards Void, who looked down to his hands and transformed them into blasters. I have a weapon we could use too. However, I don't know how we're gonna get it close enough to the ledge for this to work. Nock brought up as he began to scratch his bald head. Well, if we're talking distractions... Jada chuckled out as she took her guitar off her back and gripped it tightly within both hands. I think I may be able to lure our big buddy just close enough. She said with a devious smirk and gestured towards the beast. Jada, are you sure? We can think of something else. Void asked with concerned thoughts for his friend, who looked back at him and winked. Trust me, I was born for making distractions. She joked to Nock's nervous stare before they all turned back to the monster. I just gotta get close enough to warp the higher ground, she said, resulting in everyone turning towards the large, nature-covered castle walls, knowing exactly what they have to do. Being as quiet as they could possibly be, the group, with the pace of a little mouse, slowly and quietly tiptoed their way around the massive pillar walls. Craning their nerve-wracked eyes to the left, they could all see the giant golem continuing the feast upon the water, like the greedy creature it was. As Void and Co. walked on by, they realized just how big this titan actually was. The being of stone was almost as tall as the largest skyscraper in Aurora. Its mass was on par to the width of a cruise ship, a big, chunky boy, as Kyle would put it, that continued to cackle in glee. Alright, game plan. Jida, you warp yourself to the nearest mountain face once you're in proper teleporting range. Void began in a hard whisper, with a point towards a mossy ledge that was near the waterfall's massive drop. Once he's in falling range, Nock, you and I blow out its legs. Void went on as he readied his arm blasters. Make sure you hit the center back knees. Given the nature of flesh, its flexible and planty parts would make it the most vulnerable, especially the inner knee. The flip side explained with a lot of hand gestures towards the beast. Jesus, one moment you're working on motorcycles, the next, you're looking at something that shouldn't even be real. The mechanic whimpered as he shuffled along with his tiny legs. Hey, you wanted to come along. Jida boasted through clenched teeth, with an added stink eye towards her cousin. I didn't expect this! Nock replied as his mouth opened and eyes winced. Oh no, I gotta sneeze. Oh god, I gotta sneeze. He announced, getting everyone to turn with wide and terrified eyes. No, don't! Void nearly shouted as Jida approached and rested her finger atop the barely visible nose holes on Nock's face. Got it! She gasped, with an accompanied sigh of relief from everyone. That was until... Achoo! Without warning, Kot sneezed out the loudest of sneezes, causing everyone's stomachs to drop into what almost felt to be their feet. Snapping their heads towards the flip side with bewildered stares, Kot, in a nervous, bone-chilled stance, looked back with his own stunned eyes, before slowly raising his hands. I sneeze after other people start to sneeze. He explained with broken stutters, as Void's left eyelid started to twitch in response. Since when? Jida angrily spat with a bent razor in her arms, with hands clenched in the claws towards the sky. Since last week. Kot tried to reason, when a thundering boom and growl erupted from everyone's left. Turning around at a snail's pace, Void and the rest set their eyes upon the massive titan that now glared upon them with its gargantuan glowing eyeballs. Hi! Povnu agreed with a wave and smile, as the large beast began to frown and raise its right fist up so high it blocked out the clouded sunlight. Go! Go! Go now! Void screamed as the large hunk of stone swung downwards. On instinct, Jida threw out her hands and warped everyone out of the way. Shooting out from her orange light and back into an open castle ground platform, the group all quickly scrambled to their feet as the Titan destroyed this platform that they had stood upon moments ago. Jesus Christ! Nock cried as they all began to run forwards in the initial direction that they were heading in. Reaching his right hand down, Void snatched Jida's left and began to sprint ahead of the group. Behind them, Nock and Cobb began to lag, whilst Povnu now huddled deep into the Sparks backpack. Given the large size of this Titan, it slowly turned itself to the left and began to give chase. Its massive, stocky build prevented this Goliath from moving faster, giving the travelers some decent space between it and its awakened onslaught. Roaring, the monster began to swing its arms in a violent display, swinging at such titanic weights that the surrounding airflow changed its trajectory. With a loud, stone-shattering crash, it thrashed and smashed the old castle walls away. Flying through the air and coming down hard, the shattered remains of this old stone went spewing down and around the fleeing group. Watch your heads! Void exclaimed as the shadow of a massive chunk of debris began to near upon them. Deploying his mother's battle helmet, the Spark activated his axe, charged a wave of blue shining power to his feet, then let go of Jaida's hand with a leap. Launching upwards with an extravagant sapphire shine, the Spark instantly moved his body in a slashing spin that gave the illusion of a tiny blue funnel cloud. With one mighty cut, he destroyed the massive hunk of stone and shattered it apart into 1,000 little pieces. Landing back down with a roll, he continued to lead the charge as the monster carried on with its pursuit. "I'm sorry, guys! I couldn't hold it in! I swear on my mama!" Ka cried out as he was nearly crushed from even more falling stone. "Shut up and keep running!" Nock bellowed as he began to lose his breath. Taking note of this, Void swung his free hand down and snagged Nock back under his armpit, making the mechanic look like a small dog. With each crash and thunderous clash that came, a sense of dread began to engulf everyone's souls. Instinctually, Void got ready to open a portal, but quickly realized that he needed to insert a new set of batteries. Seriously?" he cried out as a dead end quickly began to approach. "There it is!" Jaida then shouted with a point towards the oncoming cliff face. "Don't die, alright?" she added before suddenly warping forwards. "Try to be careful!" Nock yelled as the guitarist began to make her move. Coming out of her subspace, she twirled and flipped through the air while she came down upon the Titan's lumbering form. "And a 1, and a 2, and a..." she cried before warping again, but this time with a mighty kick of flames upon exit. At strike down, the Titan's left eye shattered apart into a gooey mass of glowing muck and crystals, which sent it howling in agonized rage. "That's it, Tubby! Focus on me!" Jaida cried with a kick-off backflip from its eye socket, which led her entering into a downwards head dive. "All eyes on me!" she exclaimed with a follow-up warp. Leaping back out, Jaida cannonball flipped towards the side of the nearby mountain face and took hold of a sharp rock at landfall. Looking to her left, she sucked in a hard breath as the amount of water below would spell certain doom if she were to fall. Ignoring this, Jaida quickly began to ascend the jagged stones with a mix of both climbing and warping. The best way Void and those below could describe her movements was as though she were some kind of spider monkey. She was elegant, swift, and clean with every move she made. It was incredible. "By Darfian's spear, your cousin is awesome!" Void shouted with a growing smirk as the Titan began to follow her as planned. "By Darfian, what?" Nock asked with a stern eyebrow raise, while Kot began to catch his breath. Coming atop a big enough ledge, Jaida landed, swung her guitar around, and gripped its orange-colored frame tightly in her mitts. Breathing in a well-needed breath, she stood in an upright position, spat out some spit, and began to play. With a strum in her crystal blue pick, she created tunes so powerful that the wires Void had applied began both shimmer and emanate the notes that were played. "Whoa!" Jaida shouted, watching as the glowing auras of cosmic music began to dance into the air with orange-yellow glints of life. "What did he put on my guitar?" she started to ask, whilst noticing that the monster began to cover the sides of its head in annoyance. It seemed that the creature wasn't one for music. "That's it! Come on! Come on!" Jaida coaxed as she began to shred the strings on her guitar to full fire, all while it drew the monster closer and closer. Boom, 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 it marched, getting near the very waterfall that would bring upon its end. "Nock, now!" Void shouted as he threw both arms forwards and began to open fire to the monster's legs. Dropping down and raising his crafted blaster up, Nock too began to open fire. However, the mechanic was only able to get one shot off, with a blowback in the single blast sent him flying backwards in the cot. Minus a setback, the combined force of the Spark's energized power was enough to sever the vine tendons in the Titan's legs, resulting in the beast crumbling under its own weight. In a stone-crunching pop, the monster's legs shattered into millions of little chunks that started to spill the stolen water back out into the lake. Wobbling, the golem began to groan and shout before it inevitably toppled over. Reaching out, it clung upon the mountain's side in an attempt to save itself, only causing it to shatter and quake with Jaida still upon it. Within a moment's notice, the Titan went over the waterfall's ledge, while taking the side of the mountain with it. "Jida!" Void shouted as she now began to plummet. Screaming in sudden shock, Jida attempted to warp her way to safety, but quickly found that there was no safe place to land just yet. She had yet to master her full power, meaning that there was no way for her to long-distance warp at this moment. "No, no, 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 no!" Jida now bellowed with fear stabbing her heart as she neared the water below with each passing second. Standing upon the ledge, Void looked from Jida, then to the sheer drop below. A mixture of emotions suddenly engulfed his soul as he thought on what to do. Too high, he thought. But Jida. Too far up. But Jida. Materia, give me strength! Void yelled out as he quickly and carefully took off his bag with Pofnu still in it, and then ran towards the ledge. "Void!" The little one cried out as Nock and Cott finally stood to see what was happening. "Hang on, Freckles!" Void called as he took one hard leap and jumped the ledge. Every ounce of fear and anxiety the spark had ever felt took over in that moment. Memories flashed back to that night. The night where he lost everything. Images of a cracking ground open beneath his feet. Screams of his fellow sparks' hands reaching back for him as he clawed for theirs. But now wasn't the time to dwell on those thoughts. His friend needed help, and he wouldn't allow her to fall. Charging his horns, Void pulsated and launched himself forwards with a mighty blast of spark essence, right to Jida's location. The space between them and the water was now less than 50 feet, so Void had to work fast. Forcing himself to look down, the spark shot and extended both of his arms forwards towards Jida. The look in her eyes was of dread, looking to hold the thought that she was going to die. Void, however, refused. "No more death," he screamed aside, as he snagged his newly acquainted best friend within his metal mitts. With a sharp snapback, he yanked the girl into his arms, in which she gasped and snagged herself around his body, looking akin to a koala bear climbing a tree. Nodding his head forwards, Void then set his mother's battle helmet going from his head to mass shifting to fitting itself around Jida's skull. This was all in order to protect her and her hair from any water that could arise in the fall. Throwing his right hand down, Void, with all of his energy, summoned a Nova Rune so large that it began to curve up and around, looking akin to a forming rose. As this magic shell surrounded the duo, they at last crashed upon the water, but were concealed in the spark spell. With a bounce and roll, they both held one another close, until at last they crashed upon the nearby bay of the water. In a sharp pop, the rune shattered it into an energy field, which sent them both sprawling across the sand like beached whales. Gah! Jida yelped as Void did his best to protect her from harm. His body was her shield, and her, his princess in need of protection. With one hard roll and then another, the two at last came to a rough halt within the sandy grounds of the land of lunar souls. Void gasped some sand out as a bit of blue blood seeped from his head, while both him and Jida now rested side by side and face to face. Both were panting heavily, shocked and petrified as to what had occurred. It was a mix of both of their deepest fears, smashed together in what could only have been about 20 seconds at most. But they were alive. Void, Jida worriedly asked as the mask around her head retracted back to the spark's body. Are you okay? Void asked in return with shaken breaths, as her senses fully began to ease. You jumped off a cliff for me, she stated, as they now both sat up with sand spilling from their clothes. I thought you hated heights, she then asked, while gazing in the Void's shaken form. I do, but... The spark confirmed with fear still in his heart, as he now slowly grasped the necklace around his neck. I hate losing the people I care about more. To this, Jida scoffed in a heartfelt but saddened sigh. Taking her guitar, she latched it back onto her sash, and then pulled Void into a tearful hug. Blue. She sighed out as the spark hugged back. Turning his head, Void set his sights back upon the upper cliff, where he could see Nock, Kot, and Pofnu waving down at the both of them. In response, the spark gave a weak thumbs up, letting them all know that they were okay. For a good few moments, the two friends just sat in place. They could have very well died. It was a close call, a little too close. Yet, they did it. The Titan was gone. It had to be. As this thought crossed their heads, a flash of light appeared to their sides, resulting in them both to turn and eye down this ray. In a glimmer of green, 3 crescents suddenly appeared and out into the open, the large green one and 2 robed red ones. As they approached, they didn't say a word. However, the red crescent on the right now held a stone that was like the green one's staff spike, a pink, star-filled rock that glimmered beautifully in the slightest rainfall. Hey guys, Jada greeted as the 3 gazed upon them. Leaning down, like an actual bird, the green crescent looked to soften his stern eyes before speaking in a more gentle tone than he had previously.
Your hearts are of gold.
Approaching, the crescent with the stone handed it to both Void and Jada, who now held it in their hands with ponderous eyes. What's this? The spark asked, visibly confused. This is a star stone. You can sample its magic and get a full map to what you seek. Thank you for dealing with our Titan issue. Means a lot. They explained before all 3 turned their heads upwards and began to caw towards the sky. From these words, Void and Jada looked down to the stone and then at each other, feeling a wave of ease and glee enter their hearts. Smiling, Jada raised her fist up and gestured for a bump. To this, Void obliged and bumped back. They did it, they both thought. They did it together.